What you're looking at here is like an example of a dysfunction map. Groups of symptoms connect to a dysfunction. So for here, for example, we can see a bunch of symptoms around the team struggling to finish their work. They're constantly getting new work pushed into the team. Their daily scrums are often overrunning, and the teams are often showing unfinished work at sprint review. This is an example of a theme, right? I have looked through a bunch of symptoms that I've gathered and maybe pulled these together and said, I think these are related. And I often talk about this in the training as Spidey sense. It's the thing you build over time that says
Uh-huh.
something's wrong here, something doesn't feel right. These things over here, they seem like they may be related. And so in this case, right, here's the example of a dysfunction I've identified. Product owner isn't attending sprint planning. As a Scrum team, product owner probably should be in sprint planning. I'm calling that a
Yeah,
dysfunction.
most probably.
Right. It comes to this idea that I talk about a lot that, I'm not saying that we should do it just because Scrum says so or
Hmm.
for any other like who cares? But what I am noting is, well, we've got these problems that the team's complaining about. We know that this stuff exists. This feels like a reasonable thing we could do to solve that. And so it's because it might solve the problems that we care about treating that dysfunction. So it's because it has an actual impact to us.
Hmm.
But then the thing that we need to do to solve that issue of, just do it because the Scrum Guide says so, is we need to go across to purpose and we need to say, right, why do we care about solving this problem? What is the value of the product owner attending sprint planning? Like, why does Scrum
Mm.
have that rule? But the reason we do this as a deliberate step is because, well, I need to make sure that me and the team and the stakeholders and whoever is going to help with this change are all on the same page. Because why I think we're doing this might not be why other people think we should be doing it. And so we want to make sure
Mm.
we're aligned to that purpose. And so we kind of capture a purpose statement. In this case, we're saying the product owner represents the customer and is accountable for the value of the work. If we all agree on that, we've now got a thing that we're trying to move towards. We want to go towards a product owner that represents the customer and is accountable for the value of the work. So that's a guiding light for us, which
Hmm.
then allows us to come up with our solution, right? And again, I talk about this more in the training, but we're still talking about hypothesis. So when I say solution, I don't mean that this will solve the problem. I'm saying this is something I think I can do that might solve the problem. And we're going to test that. But the point is to keep it small. What's a little action or a little step we can take that moves us towards that purpose? I might do a one-on-one with the product owner and support them. I might run scrum training with the product owners to help them to understand the role of a product owner. That's basically it, right? So we're building a hypothesis that says, right, I'm going to take an action. It's going to move us towards purpose. If I'm correct, that solves the dysfunction. And then what we should see is that the symptoms go away. And this is where
Yeah.
the measures come in, right? So something that is normally really, really hard, the thing that I think we as practitioners struggle with the most is how do I measure? How do I demonstrate my value? But what we do in dysfunction mapping is we close the loop. We just go back to the symptoms and we say, how would I measure if this goes away? And you can do this as an
Hmm.
activity a lot of the time. You just say, well, we've got lots of unfinished work each sprint. How would I measure if that's gone away? Oh, I could measure the number of work items finished or the percentage of work items finished. New work items constantly push mid sprint. Well, how often does that happen? I could just count the number of times it happens. And so suddenly
Hmm.
you've got a really good way of quickly building a small suite of measures for a specific problem that you're trying to solve. So it's not just some, velocity, story points, general stuff. It's here's a problem I'm trying to solve, and here's how I'm going to measure if it changes. And then again, there's like a bunch of cards that give you a bit of help if you struggle with coming up with measures. So again, it's not like massively complex, really, right? This is
Hmm.
a fairly simple approach, but
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
very deliberately tweaked for, me solving the problems that I want to solve.